Welcome to this next episode of the Magdalene podcast. This time I have a very special guest. Her name is Aude. We just met actually through Nicole, who was here last week, and she's doing a pilgrimage with Aude in June. So I was looking at her website and I felt a deep, deep resonance like, oh my God, this sister is embodying the Mary Magdalene frequency. She feels pure to me. And we have spoken already a little bit before, and she also gave me a new insight that I would love to share with you. So we're gonna dive into that together. But first, would you like to tell a little bit more about yourself?
Well, first and foremost, as we are starting this podcast, the sounds of the bells are just ringing in the background.
Mm.
So I just love when these moments where, um, yeah, the cosmos, the universe, the field just recognizes here we are, we're stepping into something. So thank you so much, Lunica, for having me on the podcast, and to each and every one of you listening, because there's truly something beautiful when we come in a space of love and sharing together.
Mm.
And to me, the field or the consciousness of what Mary Magdalene is an embodiment of this love, an embodiment of the fullness of presence, fully divine, fully human, fully right, fully left, fully holy, fully material, and in this wide acceptance of being. And so if you're here, I know there is a seed in your heart that knows this to be true. And this is really one of the greatest gifts I think we can offer the world at this time, to move beyond polarity into the unity of love, beyond separation into the great remembrance that love, the gospel, the good news is truly, it's truly here, and we get to live it and we get to share it together, and it multiplies when we are together. And so with that, my name is Aude, and I would say I've been dedicating my life to Mary Magdalene and then to the heart of Christ through her for the last, um, well, very intimately for the last 10 years. And then it's been a lifelong journey and very possibly many, many lifetimes.
Mm.
And I'm from a goddess worship tradition from India called Srividya, which is a traditional lineage that is very structured in many ways. And in the revelation of this field of consciousness, which is love, the rose appeared. And the rose appeared as Miriam of Magdala. And so I had this traditional tantric path of beauty and devotion with a guru and with that way of operating into the world. And then in the same way, I had this wild Magdalene path because there was no teachings, or at least at the beginning, there was no teachings that were left. And yes, we have the Gospels, and for each and every one of you interested here, I really invite you to go back to the text and the text in Greek, and then try and open up to find somebody that can give you close translation to the text, because it is in the text. I didn't know when I started my path. I was like, oh, where do we find this? And so I started looking into Mary Magdalene and looking into this divine feminine consciousness. And then it brought me to the land in France, and it kind of started with where she arrived in Sainte Marie de la Mer, which is in Camargue. But straight away, it brought me to the region of the Cathars. And there was this prophecy, which 700 years after the death of the last Cathar, we shall return when the laurel has leaves. And I found myself at one of my early teachers. Her name is Aletheia Sophia,
Mm.
and she's really precious and dear to my heart, and a very beautiful Christian in the fullness of what that presence of love is, which is the presence of light and love. And she's the one that initiated me in many of these sites in the Cathar region. And then I lived up there at the foot of Montségur in a small hut on the Cathar Trail, and started walking the paths. And as I was walking the path, receiving um, receiving ways of being and shedding my own separation between me and love, and my own separation between me and religion, ultimately. because I was born and raised Christian, but what we call in French Christian of the Sunday, without the depth of the devotion that was in my heart. And I couldn't meet that fullness of love. And I found it in another tradition, which was the Vedic tradition, and that allowed my heart to blossom. And it pointed to Mary Magdalene. I was like, who is she? What is that? What is this wild woman, totally one pointed in love? And there was something in me that could connect to the image of this woman or the taste that she had. And by going on the land and feeling what was in the land, and also how the Cathars were on the feast day of Mary Magdalene on the 22nd of July, that's when the crusade was launched against the Cathars and burned the Cathars until the last one. And and this idea of how the Holy Roman Church kind of dissolved this relationship, and then me thinking that that was what Christ was or what religion was, and slowly, slowly finding a reconciliation between my love for Mary Magdalene and my love for Jesus that had been distorted by the way that the church had pictured him. And bless the church and everything that they're doing, and bless all those that are in the love of the light, because we will all find our way. That's the one truth, is Christ, the light will resurrect. And Mary Magdalene is an incredible figure as a woman, but she is one pointed. And if you look at her, really look at her, not look at the image of her, not look at the idol of her, but look at her like an icon. And the icon in the Orthodox traditions are a point of entry into something deeper. There is something beyond her, and she is almost like a doorway to it. And if you go into the cave, now I spend half of my time at Saint-Baume, where Mary Magdalene is said to have spent the last 30 years of her life. I was just up there walking the forest and in the cave this morning. And if you go into that cave and look at the statues of Mary Magdalene there, she's always looking in one direction. Downstairs, she's looking at the cross. In the entrance, she's on her knees looking at the open eyes of Christ as he is on the cross. Up there behind her relic, she's in repose looking above. Elevated by the angel, she's looking. She is looking at the light. She is looking at Christ. And so, how can, through the embodiment of her and the field of her consciousness, we can move our gaze toward that gaze of hers, which is towards the light, and how she can be an openness into the heart of Christ, which is pure luminosity, which is what we are. And so, to me, she was my doorway back into the love of Jesus. And it is through sensuality, it is through beauty, it is through the fullness of life. And it doesn't, at least to me, doesn't stop at that. And in the tantric tradition, we say we have Shiva and Shakti. And Shakti is the feminine, and it's all about this Shakti. But we always finish the rituals by saying Iti Shivam. It always goes back to Shiva. And so, how can we harvest this fullness of love and beauty and then involute it and turn it all towards the presence of consciousness, which is Shiva? So, to remove this idea of man and woman, but open up this principle of the feminine as creating the structure. A lot of people think, oh, the masculine is the one that creates the shape and the feminine dances within it. What if the feminine is the one who gives form, right? We're the one that gives babies into the world. We are the form. What if Mary Magdalene is the form? She is the anointing jar. And then what it leads to is it creates, by creating the form, it opens up a doorway into the space of consciousness, which is the formless, which is Shiva, which is Christ. Christ is dissolved. He's gone. He's not there anymore. He's resurrected. And yet she lived. And she lived with the embodiment of that and came to France. So I don't know what the question was, but that's where we went.
Wow, I love it. So do you feel that then you can say like this feminine is the embodiment and the form And the masculine is the formless is consciousness, or is that too simplified?
I think, when we make categories, it's always simplified because it's a
Yeah.
beautiful dance between both. But I think to me, that is really coherent. It's the descent of the form. And then as you embody the form, then the formless can come. It's this union of masculine and feminine, fully human. And then in this humanity, fully divine. And something that is extraordinary about Miriam of Magdala is, and in this place, Sanbom, which is a place where women and men who have lost children, or who have had abortions, or who have had this, and I don't know if that happened to one of you, but I'm sure it did because it happened to many of us. And that terror of a miscarriage, and there's nowhere where it can go, but how more human can it be than to lost life? And in this cave of Mary Magdalene since 2015, it's a place where you can have a traditional ritual that recognizes it. And you can name that child in front of God. And I'm speaking to that because there's something about the humanity of Mary Magdalene that gives us an opening into the divinity and the humanity of the woman's body as the place where there is loss. We lose every month. Every month, we have the potential to have a child. And when it's not seeded, there's a loss. Obviously, we're not just talking about child, we're talking about project and creation, but there's inherently that space in us that faces grief and loss. And if I think of Mary Magdalene, in French we say pleurer comme une Madeleine, cry like a Madeleine, cry like a Magdalene. And I think for me, these tears are tears of grief, and there's tears of celebration, and there are tears of love. And in her totality of presence, in the fullness of her love, she came. Well, first, she was forgiven in the eyes of Christ. And in that moment, she fully turned towards the light. One pointed. Yes, she was, at least how I imagine her. Goddess knows what she was, but I imagine her. And the moment she met the gaze of Christ, all of that energy turned towards the light. And then we have this scene famous where she walks. She's famous for her alabaster jar, which is a jar of nectar, a jar of perfume. She is the one who perfumed the house, and she will be remembered for this act. And she walked in this room with her hair long, and she shattered this vessel that was known in Greek as a pistike. Pistis means faith. Pistike means the one that makes faith one. So there was no doubt between the presence of God and God. It was one. And that shattered this scent into the whole room with when she anointed the feet of Christ, this fullness. Imagine this intimacy with her hair, anointing all of it, that fullness of being. And then she was there, and then she was there at the feet of the cross. No other disciple except John the Beloved and Mother Mary. And then crying at the feet of the cross. At least I see her cry. Maybe she wasn't, but those tears, this shattering. I have lost the one that has seen me in the light. I have lost the one that has made me the I am that I am, or allowed me to remember the I am that I am. And I lost him in a terrible way. And yet, that's what had to happen. Because it is the crucifixion that allowed Jesus to reveal that he was the Son of God. She had no doubt. She got the Holy Spirit at the cross. All the others have to wait 50 days for Pentecost. We're in the middle of the doubting now. Oh, this and that. No, no faith, total faith, no doubt. Holy Spirit there. And then at the tomb, she is the one that had the eyes of love to see the resurrection. Whoa, whoa, what is that? To have had no doubt, and the eyes of such a profound love that she is the one that could see the resurrected body of light. And then with that love and that gaze was the one to be the apostle of the apostle. That's what was her mission, to announce the resurrection to the other apostles.
Mm.
And so, how, in the purity of the fullness of her sensual devotion, that created the form that could be the witness of the formless, and then carrying that as a message for the others, and then embodying that and walking as that as she came on the boat without oar in France and left those seeds on the land of France here, where up until this day, here in Saint-Baume, it's very tangible, that consciousness is present and
Because
alive.
do you also feel that it's true that she lived there the last 30 years of her life, or at least that she was there in the end of her life?
You know, these are all debates and stories and mythology. And yet, if any one of you comes here, maybe,
Mm,
maybe you can, at least in your own mythology, trust that that can be real.
mm,
This
mm.
forest, this cave has a tangible presence to me
Yeah,
and
yeah.
to many I see walking there, undeniable of a consciousness of love. And
Beautiful.
is it her, or is it the presence of her communion with Christ? Because she
Mm,
was one, the moment that he died on the cross, she was one with Christ. In that moment, she became literally the living embodiment of it. All the other ones had to wait 50 days for the Holy Spirit to come in them and make them speak in tongues and do all these crazy things to make them believe. She didn't need to have any of the show. Her love was so pure and her devotion total that she didn't even have to have a show to trust that the Holy Spirit had descended. She knew because of this fullness. And I think the women and men that are in this podcast have this fullness of devotion in their heart. And that's why we're here. And
mm.
how do we find a way to express it in something that is coherent? And where do we offer this back? And I think today, and I'll speak about it, I think today Mary Magdalene is such an extraordinary figure for us and for the world looking for this devotion. And yet, many are still limiting who she is because we have
And
no idea. We have no.
and and what do you feel like if we translate this and her embodiment and the devotion, if we translate it to now, to this time and where we are right now, like how can we learn from her devotion? What can it bring us when we fully devote to her and to Christ?
Well, when you say that, I hear your child in the background, and
Mm,
that's what we can do. Fully being with what is there.
mm,
And in that full humanity, tend to our children, our community, our family, our loved ones, and then expand it in a way that is truly honest, which is, I am not perfect and I will show up in love, which is, I bow down to you, love of the light. For her, it was Jesus. I bow down to you, Christ, to show me how to walk in love because I don't know.
and how do we do that? In like,
In practicalities.
well, for instance, like what you shared last time, that touched something in me. Like it felt to me that this Christ that you described, like she was devoted to him in a way, you know? And there, this came in me, there came this kind of anger or resistance, like, why does it need to be about him again, you know? Because I still felt that the feminine didn't receive enough attention, maybe, or enough, you know what I mean? Like, and then again, it's like, it's all about him, and and it felt a bit submissive. And on the other side, it also felt like I want to know more. What if it's like, what if this is the answer, you know? Can you describe a bit more about that?
Yeah, and him is Christ, it's the light, but it's also the masculine in us, right? It's really that. It's finding that place of, at least to me, yes, the feminine has been repressed, suppressed, unexpressed. And we need to have this remembrance of the feminine. But if we just make it the feminine and we forget why we're doing that, then we're losing the mark again.
Mm.
And so to recognize the fullness of the feminine, to recognize everything that has happened, and then to not make Mary Magdalene or the feminine an idol, which is putting her on a pedestal and that's her and that's an image and we just go there, and not allowing to see what's behind the scene, which is opening to the icon. And in the icon, penetrating and look at what she's looking at, which is the light, and that we are all children's and daughters, sons and daughters of God. And we are all brothers and sisters of Christ, and presence of this light in our heart. And then in that, honor that light in the heart of man and woman. And how in us have we abused our feminine? How in us have I used continuously sex to manipulate and get what I want? Or sexual energy. Oh, I'm going to get this, or I'm going to get that, and I'm going to do it all in the name of the light. Okay, what is really happening here? And then involute all of that and say, I am sorry for I have sinned. And not this idea of sin in the Catholic Church, let me whip myself and feel I've done something bad. But with so great humility, sin comes from the Latin meaning the missing the mark of love. Oh, okay. How many times today have I missed the mark of love? I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry because I didn't see. Show me the way. And so to asking to that presence of the Christ, which is consciousness, let's put it like that consciousness of totality, which is the formless, asking that field, show me the way. I have this feminine body that can feel the way and now take me across. And where I feel Mary Magdalene, to me, right, I cannot speak for anybody else,
No, yeah.
but she is a model that can be a guide and that says you have figured it out in your lifetime, you have lived through this, take my hand, because we need a guide.
Mm.
Yes, we are in this new age whatever where people think they can do it all on their own. Yes, until a certain point. There's one point where I'm glad, because I don't want to do it on my own. There's those that have done it before us. So with
Mm.
humility, bowing down and say, please, please, I put my tender heart here. I don't know how to go forward. Show me how to go forward. Show me what I do not see and open my eyes so I can see through the eyes of love. And in this field, all, all is welcome. Your anger, your love, your frustration, your violence, your tenderness, your presence. And then I sit in that moment where Mary Magdalene came for the first time in the presence of Christ. And everybody was judging her. And she was judged as a prostitute, but prostitute simply meant a woman not of the law. And a woman not of the law meant two things, especially in this context. First of all, Mary Magdalene was learning the Torah. She was
Mm.
being taught by her brother Lazarus, and that was illegal for women. So she was an illegal woman. Second of all the women had their hair covered, and she let her hair loose, also out of the law. And so everybody was judging her. And when have we judged ourselves? And when have we been judged by others? And it's not all about Christ. And yet, you have had a moment like that. And some of you also in this podcast had a moment, that moment where suddenly you were seen by the eyes of love. And you saw yourself in the eyes of love. And what if her meeting with Christ was finally the meeting where she was seen and she saw herself through his eyes, but it was she saw herself in the totality of love. And she didn't need to act anymore into being this or being that or pretending this or pretending that or being judged by this. But in that fullness, her vanity was accepted, her love was accepted, her violence was accepted, her beauty was accepted, her devotion was accepted, her promiscuity was accepted. All. And so, how this message of this love can, in this moment where it's so easy, because that's the field of consciousness that the world is in, to make separation. I am for this, I am for that, I am divine feminine, I am divine masculine, I am going to resist this, resist that. how can we open up to what is behind the scene of all of that, of
Mm.
a love that accepts that this is how it is meant to be? Because Jesus will have to die on the cross to be revealed. That as terrible as the world is and as horrible as the violence is, can we remain in love in this space? How terrible the violence against women has happened, how submissive we have been put, how horrible what has been done to the church, and how can we accept that perhaps this was perfectly what had to happen in order for us to be here today and enter a holy forgiveness, forgiving, and a holy acceptance that that is what is in order to penetrate into this deeper truth of love, which is all, well, all one in the presence of the fullness of light. I know it's radical, and Jesus was radical, and Mary Magdalene was radical, and
Mm.
this path is completely radical, and we are in radical times, and we are asked to do that. And I know it's easy to take one side and not the other. And when we can, that's where for me, I bow down to those that have done it before. Because Jesus was betrayed by Judas and he
Mm.
knew it. And yet, Judas, who betrayed him, is the one that made him too. Because Jesus would have not been able to be the resurrected Son of God if it wasn't for the betrayal of Jesus,
Yeah,
for the
and I
betrayal
also
of Judas.
read somewhere, and I don't know if that's the truth, but that he asked Judas to do that. That it, we don't know, and but yeah, I find
In,
that interesting as well.
in the text, he said, "You will do it." In the
Mm.
text, in the gospel, it's written, "You will do it." And
Yeah.
he knew what was going to happen. And so, if that's how the story played out for the resurrection of the light, can we have faith that as horrible and as unjust what has happened to women, what has happened to man, what has happened to the world is what perhaps is what needs to happen in order to have the resurrection of the light, to live in the garden, to live in this world to be true, because we are moving to it. There's one thing that is no doubt: the light will prevail.
Mm.
And how can we hold each other in this field of love and hold each other when we're forgetting this and wants to go because we're human and we're going to keep on forgetting?
Mm.
And how can we not when the world is so violent out there to say that's not right? you know so anyways, these are like thoughts, and this is really, it's a step, at least to me it's been a step by step unfolding over the last 15 years of my life, and a reconciliation with the church, which I was completely against what the church had done. And now I'm not saying that I'm for the church or against the church, but I'm like, you know the monks here, the Dominican monks, as many I can criticize them, they're tending to her relics since the 4th century. And
Mm.
they've devoted their life to what they believe to be true, which is their way of understanding how Christ needs to be protected.
Mm.
And to also hold that in love. And they're dealing with all the priestesses coming in. Mary Magdalene was definitely a priestess, but she was way more than that. So
Mm.
let's not limit her to being a priestess. How
And
can we open?
what would be wrong? Not that I'm saying that it's not right, but what would be wrong with making her a priestess? Do you mean then you put her on the pedestal, or you make it like you lose the icon, or what?
I think when you make her a priestess, you limit her. Obviously, she was a priestess. There's no
Mm.
doubt. She knew the
Mm.
rites of anointing, she knew the rites of passage, but she's way more than that. She's the apostle of the apostles. She's the carrier of the message of the good news.
Mm.
Whoa, like when we yes, she's a priestess, but let's not limit her to that.
Mhm.
Let's open up what it is, because we have no idea. And the only thing I can really say about her is that I have no idea what she is.
Exactly, yeah.
Yet, as I step over and on her land, the level of humility and wonder and grace and tenderness and transformation and how far I am from love with a capital L and how gently she brings me back to it is something really tangible.
Beautiful. And then if you speak about her land, you're talking about the Qatar region and Sunbaum and this area, right?
Yeah, so the way that there's different stories, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole universe. So it said that she arrived on a boat without oar
Mm-hmm.
in a place called Sainte Marie de la Mer. Now it's called Sainte Marie de la Mer. In the times of the Gaulois, it wasn't called Sainte Marie de la Mer. And what I love, I've been talking about bringing this unity of feminine, masculine, but Sainte Marie de la Mer is the land of black bulls and white horses. What? Come on. She arrived on the land where these two things are there. It's the land where all of the gypsies of Europe come at the end of May to take Saint Sarah la Kali. Okay, like come on, the black one, like this connection to the gypsies, which are connected to India. So it's a completely syncretic site. And this Black Madonna is carried and brought to the sea like a wild Indian ritual. So, and then when you go there, it's like cowboy land. And it's a mix between this like wild gypsy cowboy land and this Christian Provençal land. And that's where she arrived. And that's where Mary Salome and Mary Jacobea, which are the aunts of Jesus, that were also the miraphors, the holder of the jar, are the relics are there. Anyways, and some stories say that that region was filled with the Romans, not some story, that region was filled with the Romans, and that she arrived and that she had to hide in that moment because, the Romans had just crucified Christ and they were persecuted. And so that she was taken in by maybe Sarah, the Egyptian queen that had a vision of her arriving on the land, and she whispered how to get to safe passage. And in that legend, and it's a legend. It is said that she went west and crossed through the sea and crossed the Corbière mountain to end up what was going to be the Cathar region, which is the Aude region and Ariège region in France. That became the flourishing of the Cathars 900 years ago, became that region. I'll speak of that. In the Provençal tradition, which is a tradition of Provence and Var, it is said that she made it straight to Saint-Baume, passing through Marseille, where she would have, with her brother Lazarus, did some preaching. And her sister Martha ended up in Tarascon, where she tamed a dragon, La Tarasque. And then her brother Lazarus became the Archbishop of Marseille. And then she went up to Saint-Baume. And so the Holy Family all had their own roles. If you think of Martha, Martha was cleaning the house in the gospel. She kept on doing the same job. She like cleaned up from the dragon that was eating all the people. And then that was her role. And she tamed it with holy water. Mary Magdalene was one with Christ. Where did she go? She went on the mountain and became one with the mountain. Lazarus was into Torah. And so what he did, he went to preach. So that's in the Provençal tradition. In this mystical tradition with the Cathars, les Cathares were said to be a group of people that were in the region of Occitania in France. And it was a very advanced society. Women like Eleanor d'Aquitaine, who was one of the key patron of the region and was in Foix. Foix was the capital. And so there was this amazing patronage from women, and there was courtly love and courtly singing. And the Cathar themselves had what we knew that the perfected ones, and les parfaits was the priests and the priestesses, and they were knew to step out of society, go live in a cave for 40 days. And when they would come out, they would be blessed that perfected one, receive the light into their body, and then walk two by two on what was known the trails of the Cathars, the path of love, holding the book of love and holding church and nature. It is said that they believed that Mary Magdalene and Yeshua were a togetherness, a communion, and they were vegetarian, and that's, they had a direct connection to God. And so that was this flourishing society in Occitania. And so some believe that Mary Magdalene came in that region early on and left some seeds. And that seeds of early Christianity that then, over 800 years, blossom in what was to become the Catharism.
Mm.
When you go on that land, the land still whispers of that
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah. I feel this. I know it. It's just that.
So there is that deep presence, and there are sites where it said that she may have done baptism and that. Yet the land, then, we're talking in the 1200, there was a bloodbath where
Mm.
all of them, until the last one, was put on the stake.
Mm.
And so, as we are remembering this fullness of love, to go back to this conversation of oneness, can we accept the unacceptable?
Mm.
Can we accept the violence of that? And rather than going into a polarity, open our heart wider and know that that's what had to be done for us to remember.
Mm.
That the cross had to happen for the light to resurrect. And so when you go on the land, there's these different layers. There's a layer beneath the ground that has a memory of that. Then
Mm.
there's a layer above ground, which is the death of that. And because there's a lot of light and shadow, there's a lot of in between stuff. And then, sorry, but a lot of like new age woo woo stuff that happened that just brings a lot of weird energy in. And then you're like, wow, what is happening? And yet, when you go there with the remembrance of love in your heart and hold it, this is the great work of transmutation. And so each and
Mm.
every one of you on this podcast, I know your heart is calling for this. So I thank you for whenever you come on the land, either it's with me or another guy or whatever, because this is a great work of transformation, of remembering the essence of love. And in the face of all that has happened, to pull us away from love. Because yes, it wasn't fair that people got burned down for being love. And yet, by remembering it not in the anger and violence, and yet recognizing the anger and violence, but remembering in the love, we
Mm.
get to really transform that and open up to the deeper, really, the coming together.
Yeah.
Um,
And I feel that also when you are on the land, and for instance Montsegur, the first time that I came on the land I couldn't go there, it was impossible for me to go there. And then the second time I could only sit on the hill, not go up. And then the third time I could go up, and I felt this tremendous joy inside of my body because I could so feel their celebration and their faith of just going into the fire singing. And I could feel that that was really like a celebration. And then I felt like, okay, but if this is felt and perceived like this to them, how then to judge that, you know? Because there was so much faith and I could feel it. And for me to receive that took a while yeah, to even be able to go there, you know? And that's it. I feel that the land has so much to share, but all is about love. Of course, to open your heart to this message and to receive that message from the water in your body, you know, to really experience the receiving of that love in your body just by bathing in the water. It's, yeah, how amazing is that, no?
And thank you so much for sharing. When you shared that, my whole body got the chills in it, and that's it. How can we judge? And where have we judged in our life, even for things that seem unfair? How can we know? And when in that secret moment, with time, we see that, oh, for them it was a celebration. I couldn't even perceive that from my limited self. And in that, this wider acceptance of love, of like that faith, that enduring thing that, okay, this is how it is to be, and how wider in love. And that's why when you open your arms and feel the cross, yes, the Catholic Church has depicted it as like Jesus dying in pain, but what if it is a celebration?
Mm,
What if it is, here I am, I offer myself, and sacrifice means to make sacred. I
mm,
offer my body to be made sacred. So, what is my presence, the gift I'm here to share, can be revealed. And what I'm hearing, what you're sharing, is that the land has, through your intimacy, right?
mm,
And you're listening. You went there, you listen, you went there a second time, you listen, you went there a third time, and then slowly it opens. And to when you go on the land, bring offerings.
mm,
Always give more than you take. And I see this with forgiving versus forgetting.
beautiful.
And in life, we want to get things. Oh, I want to get justice. I want to get remembrance. I want to get remembered. But what if I forgive? I give myself. I don't know.
Mm,
I give this moment. I don't know. I know I'm here for something. I don't know for what. I give it. And then in that giving, to be able, as you said, to receive through the waters of our body, through the waters of those land, because the water remembers, we know that now. And
mm.
in the remembrance of the water, whisper blessings, and in that receive what is here for us, and then to share it back.
Yeah, and I like that what you shared now, and we also talked about it the last podcast, that it's not about what do I want from life, but what does life want from me, and to open your channel or your body and everything in it to start receiving so you can give from that place instead of being focused on the other way, and it makes it more receptive. You are more receptive in that openness, I feel.
It is making it more receptive. It requires what Magdalene did, a
Mm-hmm.
jump into the abyss of trust.
Mm.
And it requires us to have the humility of, like, actually, I don't trust life, so I want something from life.
Yeah.
Rather than, I don't trust life, please help me trust life. I want something with life.
Yeah, and that
And
makes it beautiful because I feel like to ask you to close this and that we have time for this closing, to share with us like an exercise that we can do right now as you're listening, to take really time to receive this exercise, to stop whatever you're doing next to this listening to this podcast, but to really receive it. So, can you find some sort of exercise that we can do together?
yeah, yeah, so we'll just close our eyes. And with your eyes closed, you just simply allow everything that has happened before this moment and everything that will happen after this moment to dissolve, trusting that whatever has to be remembered from this conversation is already known. And I invite you to imagine that you are a tree in the magical forest of Sanbo. And just as a tree, you feel your sit bones deeply anchored deeper and deeper into the earth. And these roots of the trees connecting to all of the other trees of this forest. Interdependence. This remembrance is not just yours, it's that of the whole consciousness. And then you feel your spine, and you feel your spine like the trunk of a tree, elevating, rising, and like a tree, it rises up towards the light. And you feel the branches of the tree at the top of your spine, feeling the branches being caressed by the sun, and the sun caressing it back. And you are a tree in the forest of Sanbo, interdependent with all the other trees, creating a forest of beauty, and always rising up towards the light. And now as you inhale, receive the breath. And as you exhale, soften the tongue. Inhale, receive the breath. Do not take the breath. And as you exhale, soften the tongue. Inhale, imagine the whole body, the whole tree is breathing, the trunk, the leaves, the root, expanding, receiving the light. And as you exhale and soften the tongue, dropping deeper and deeper into the uniqueness of the I am that is you. You are a tree in a forest, and yet you are fully unique as you are. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. You don't even have to breathe. You allow the breath to breathe you. And here you shift from wanting something from life to wanting something with life. Inhale, receive the breath. Exhale, softening the tongue. And as you drop deeper and deeper in this network of love, this network of nourishment, this network of life around you, you keep on growing and rising towards the light. And you open to the shift from the life that you have to the life that you are. You are life. You are whole, fully anchored in the earth, fully open to the heaven, fully human, fully divine. And in the fullness of being, you forgive and offer yourself to be revealed as the gift that you are to serve. Feeling the presence of Mary Magdalene walking through these woods in this forest, and you, a tree, being able to witness her and witness this consciousness being part of you as well. Inhale, receive the breath. Exhale, soften everything. Two more just like that. Inhale, receive the breath. And on the third one, as you do that, hear how in the sound of your breath there is the sound of the water. Letting the washing away of the waters caress your body through your breath, and remember that just as the water is, clear and crystalline, flowing, your being is. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. So here
Thank
we are.
you.
Thank you so much for having me and for doing this podcast and gathering people in the voice of Magdalene. It's such an honor.
Yeah, it's really beautiful that you shared this with us. And I feel that, yeah, what it did to me was like, oh yeah, it's really also about forgiving and softening and to not knowing from another level, you know? There's so many levels to well, you can give it a word, for instance, not knowing. And then there's this level towards not knowing, and then there's another level towards not knowing. And it's like a sinking into wisdom, I feel. And you open up a new jar.
Well, enjoy the perfume that it brings, and you opened it up. You were ready to receive and listen, and you opened it up. She
Mm,
just pointed you to a place. And as you step into it, it's a gift that keeps on giving.
mm,
It's for giving. It's for
mm.
giving. It's
Beautiful. So, everyone that is here right now, thank you so much for listening, for receiving. And we are always super curious to know what was your biggest takeaway, what resonated most, what touched you in the heart, and to share this podcast with a sister or a brother that you feel like needs to hear this. And yeah, share also your insights down here. And if you want to know more about Aude, I'm gonna also share your website. Um, is there still a spot available for your next journey?
Yeah, there's still some space, but I need sooner than later because actually we're doing the opening call tomorrow, but there's still some space tomorrow, which is going to be Thursday, April 16th. But if you feel called, we're going on pilgrimage from June 3rd till the 11th, and we're going from Barcelona through the castle to Montserrat, which is a site
Mm,
right to the Black Madonna that's extraordinary,
mm,
through the Cathar region into the region of Provence. And we're an intimate group. We won't be more than 10 people. And my website may change soon. Now it's goldenmystery.com, but it will become Pilgrimage of the Rose. Yeah, I also do private pilgrimage, but write to me in advance because I'm not much out there and my life is also shifting quite a bit. But I'm here to be of service. And yeah, if you feel called, I'm here.
all right. So I'm gonna share the website, and if you change it, let me know. I will put on the new website also
Perfect.
in the link because
Yeah.
people watch this later as well.
And also, just one thing is, I work with this academy called the Academy of Oracle Arts, and the pilgrimage I'm doing is through them in June. And so I'll
Mm,
send you that page, and then there's a course, and I will see. It's been a live course where for 9 months we run through 9 symbols dedicated to Mary Magdalene, and it's a mix of like teachings and imaginal pilgrimage, etc. And I'm not sure we're going to run it next year, but we may make it available as an evergreen. And it's not because we made it, we didn't make it. Me and my previous partner, that's why we came together, I think. We were not supposed to
mm.
be together, but our union birthed this. And it is such precious. I was walking up to the cave this morning, and who was there? He was there in front of the relics. And we met following the relics of Mary Magdalene twice. So that's the energy that is in that course as well. So, anyhow.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you
And
so much.
I'm looking forward to meet you somewhere on the land, maybe this summer.
Yes, it will be a pleasure, and may our coming together today and always be for the greatest good of all beings everywhere. But
Mm,
particularly, may our remembrance of the light and of this field of love be felt by those that are suffering,
mm.
suffering of war, suffering of violence, suffering of ignorance. May the remembrance of the presence of the unity of love be felt like them. Mm. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.